So today we're here with Jill Powell, celebrity makeup artist who's currently on tour with Demi Lovato. And Jill's famous for her flawless skin. So today she's going to show us how to achieve that perfect complexion on Australian actress Susie Collins. So Jill, from looking at what you have laid out here, it looks like you do this kind of glowing, contoured look very similar to the way that I do.
Oh, really?
Which is, different to a lot of people. A lot of people use their creams and their concealers and their foundations to create all the contouring.
Right.
And I'm also, by the looks of what you're about to do it mostly with powders. So what's your reason for doing that?
I love the way that the cream contour looks, so I do use a tiny bit of that technique. But for me, all my clients work, they're artists, they're singing a concert, they're on an all-day photo shoot or an all-day video shoot, and I don't have time to touch up all the time. And if they put their hand on their face and you get fingerprints in your contour, that's not good. So for everyday people at home, I'm sure you want to do your makeup once in the morning and you don't want to have to deal with it. You don't want to have to worry about it smudging or moving throughout the day. So that's why I really like to utilize powders.
So Jill, obviously you have a lot of people following your career, and you must get a lot of the same questions coming up all the time. What are the most common questions that people ask you about the way you do your makeup?
I do. I get questions all the time. One of the main things is, how do you make Demi's skin glow? So we'll definitely cover that today. Another is, how do you make it stay? She shoots X Factor all day. She's having a concert sweating and the makeup is still flawless in the last song. Hopefully, that's my hopes every time. And so how do you get it to stay? We'll definitely touch that.
Great.
And also, how do you create dimension? So
perfect.
Those are the three things
This
we'll
will be a great tutorial.
Okay, so one of the things that I do to make sure that skin's flawless all the time is just make sure that it's perfectly moisturized. So I always kind of feel the client's skin and kind of see where it needs moisture. The most moisture to me is the better, but just for the longevity piece, you also want to make sure it's not overly moisturized. I'm always using my hands to apply skincare because I can really feel the client's skin and I can also feel the contours of the face. So I really like to feel where the skin needs more hydration or might need a little bit more attention when applying makeup. One of the most important steps to ensure your makeup stays on is using a proper primer. Once again, I always apply the primer with my hands just to make sure that I don't apply too much. Now that we've primed the face, I want to go in and kind of create some shape. So I use a multitude of foundations, some darker, some lighter, and some that match. I like to just start by creating shape around the perimeter. So I'll start on the forehead with a little bit of a darker color. And then I'll go into the hollows of the cheek so you can kind of feel where your cheekbone is. And start there. And as you can see, this is just a couple shades darker than her natural skin tone. And I'm applying it in very, very sheer. And now depending on your face shape, you may need a little bit more contouring or less contouring, depending on your bone structure and the shape of your face. So if you tend to have larger cheeks, you may want to contour a little bit more in this area. Susie's got a beautiful bone structure, so we're just going to do a really light contour on her. So then I like to do a little bit of a lighter color throughout the center of the face. And again, everything that I do is in very sheer layers. So while I'm applying the color in the center of the face, I try to avoid that first darker color that we applied, just so that we can create the dimension. I tend to like to apply foundation in really sheer layers. So you'll notice I apply it and then I'm blending it out just so that we get a really nice light layer of foundation, and then we can build if needed. I'm actually going to use a third color right in the V's under the eyes. The V that I'm talking about is this entire area under the eye. So from the outside of the nose to the edge of the eye, and then filling in. I like to keep this triangle of light really, really light. And then last but not least, we're going to go over the jawline. And here you really want to make sure that the color is pretty close to your neck color, just so you're not getting differentiation between your face and your neck. And Susie has a great defined jawline, so we don't need to do any dark contouring. If you need a little contouring in this area, that's where you can use some powders later, and I can show you that technique. So now that we've gone in with one light layer of foundation, I'm going to go back and do some concealing, and then we'll step into our powders. If you tend to have dark circles, depending on the color of the circles, might influence what color concealer you want to choose. If you have a lot of like purplish blue tones, you might want to opt for more of a peach tone concealer under the eye. Or if you have more of a reddish purple, you can go a little bit more yellow based. A lot of times I like to use my ring finger to go in and finish the concealer. It will help to melt the concealer into the skin and make it look really natural. So now that we have a good base of foundation, this is where I go in with my powders to contour and create shape and dimension and light. You can use a multitude of different types of powders. Smashbox makes a really awesome contouring palette. You can use some neutral based blushes or even a bronzer. Just make sure it doesn't have too much of an orange to it, otherwise it might look a little forced. So when choosing a bronzer, the more ashy tones actually create more natural shape. So NARS Lagoon is a great example. It doesn't have too much of that reddish orange to it, so you're actually going to get that really natural shadow. Also, when you're contouring with powders, you want to make sure that your bronzer doesn't have too much shimmer in it because that can look a little fake. We want to create the natural dimension of the face. I personally like to use an angled brush when creating contours on the cheek because I feel that the motion just goes along with the face. To find the placement of your personal contour, feel for the cheekbone and then feel right underneath, and that's where you're going to want to apply your contour. So one thing that I always like to tell people is that when you're doing your bronzer or contour, think about a heart shape on your face. So you're going to go a little bit along the perimeter of your forehead, down your cheekbones, and even hit your chin a little bit. So think of a heart. I also like to put a little bit of bronzer on the nose so that you can create a natural contour without having to completely contour the nose.
Is the contouring meant to look like where the sun naturally hits?
Exactly. So a lot of people, when you get sun, your forehead will actually get a little bit more color, and that's why it's okay to apply a little bit more bronzer up there. One other tip is a lot of times our chin will shade the center of our neck because of where the sun's naturally hitting. It's going to create a shadow, so don't forget the center of the neck. Now this is where I like to go in and apply highlight. So there's a few different options for highlight. I personally like a powder option. This one has more of a rose gold tint and this one has more of a champagne tint. So depending on the skin tone, you can opt for either one. Usually I use more of a rosy tint on someone who has like a warmer, kind of peachier skin tone, and if you're more golden, then I go for more of a champagne or gold highlight. So this one is a Laura Mercier Face Illuminator, and then this one is by Galactic, and it's called the Face Glow. I'm going to start with the Laura Mercier, and because it has more of a rosy tint, you'll notice I'm going to apply it on the cheekbones and then blend down a little bit. And then I'm going to use the more champagne color by Galactic, and this is where I'm going to go a little bit higher just to hit the high planes of the cheekbones. So again, you'll kind of feel the orbital bone of the face, and that's where you want to apply the lighter color. This lighter color is also great for the Cupid's bow. So in my kit, I have a lot of a variety of makeup, and this is actually, I believe, a Target find. It's by Sonia Kashuk, and it's an amazing illuminating stick. I love to use this as my contour and highlight of the nose. So remember, before I applied bronzer to the nose, and now I'm just going down and highlighting the center. So now that we've applied contour, highlight, foundation, I'm going to go in and add a little bit of color to her cheeks. And so I'm going to start kind of towards the apple and then brush into the contour. So as you'll notice, we haven't applied any powder foundations or powder with coverage yet. I like to do all of my coloring, my contouring, my blush, my highlighting on top of the foundation, and that's another way that it makes it stay. So last but not least, I'm going to go in and set certain areas with powder. So I'm going to set her forehead, I'm gonna set the lower part of her jawline, her nose, and not totally covering the highlight that we just created. And then the chin, and last but not least, I'm gonna do a sweep over. I find when you do powder last, then the rest of the color looks like it's just emerging from the skin.
Well, Jill's done an amazing job on Susie's skin and she looks absolutely flawless, so I hope you all got a lot from that beautiful skin technique. Now Jill's going to do a quick eye on Susie, something that she's often done on Demi Lovato that's going to look amazing for our photo shoot.